Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's Open Door Show. Pleasure to have you here. And of course, it's a miserable day out there, so across probably most of the country. Afternoon's going to brighten up, so what better place to spend the morning than with us? So welcome to the Open Door Show. My name's Richie Clapson, and I'm here with the other half of Property CEO, Mr. Ian Child.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you're well.
What a fantastic shirt he's wearing this morning as well. A little bit
Well,
loud.
somebody needed to do something to kind of, the sun's disappeared, and I thought, what can I do to help tease it out? And I thought a loud shirt or a loudish shirt might do the trick. We'll wait and see.
And it's still raining, so it never teased the sun out. But there you go. Anyway, guys, look, it's great to have you here. And just in case this is your first time, and there are definitely some names I don't recognise, so welcome to you. What have you let yourself in for on this Saturday morning? Well, our aim is to give you around 45 minutes of non-stop positivity all around the theme of property development. Isn't that right, Ian?
Certainly is. Richie and I run a company called Property CEO, and basically our day job is training people how to become successful small-scale property developers. Of course, many people really quite like the idea of developing property, but they often worry it's going to be risky, it's going to be very complicated, and basically our job is to give them the support and the training that they need to be able to do it as safely and as successfully as possible. We also think that there is an amazing opportunity right now, which is going to create a lot of wealth for developers going forward. So we wanted to help people find out all about that opportunity and of course to see if development might be a good fit for them.
That's right. At the moment, there's lots going on in the world. We're probably entering a fairly big recession, hopefully a reasonably quick recovery, but make your own mind up on that. There's lots of opinion and stats out there, and you get lots of opinion from people on this show as well. But recessions create opportunities at the end of the day, but only for those that seek them out and take advantage of them. With all due respect to anyone out there, don't go and screw anyone over. Let's be sensible about this, and then you'll do well. So we'll be serving up advice. Obviously, we'll be answering any questions. Derek will be answering questions. Who's Derek? I'll tell you in just a moment. So hopefully we're going to have a bit of a good time doing it. But above all, it's all about having fun. Now, we want to take questions in the chat box. No questions, no show. So please put your questions in the chat box, and we will be more than pleased to take them. Anyway, so welcome to all you people that are on. So there's a lot of people, a few names clicking on. Sorry, just flicking over here. So Clive's on, Yvonne's on, Raj, Jenny, Marilyn, good morning. Haven't seen you for some time. Vijay, Hitan, Colin's on, Ranjit's on, Property Investor News. Ranjit from Property Investor News is on. Good magazine, actually, worth a little read. Read it once or twice myself. Ashley's on, Debs and Rich is on, Trish is on, Harjinder's on, Sarah's on, Helen's on, Jin's on, Adir, Jackie, Sammy, Patrick O'Regan is on. I shouldn't mention his surname. I don't know why I did that with Patrick. Patrick's on. Sorry, Patrick, never mentioned your surname, but welcome to the show. And we also have, where is that? I just saw it. Cowshed Colin is on.
Not fooling anybody, really.
No, and one of our students seems to come up with this pathetic name every month because he's currently looking at agricultural buildings and the PD rights associated. Well, his name's Bob, but today he's registered on as Cowshed Colin. Bob, okay, 4 out of 10 for creativity, but there you go. Karen's just joined. Karen, welcome. Good morning to you. And Debs and Richard says, good morning, Ian Richie, on this wet and wonderful Saturday morning. We had our bacon butties early this morning, so we won't be eating them on the show today. Smiley face. That's good. We don't want you eating whilst on the show. You need to pay attention.
No crumbs.
Yes. Andy says, good morning, gents. And Ranjit says, good morning to the lovely co-hosts and attendees. Ranjit from www.property/investor/news.com. Good morning, says Gavin. Morning, guys, says Yvonne. Morning, Ian Richie, says Trish. Richie and Ian are switched on, says Ranjit.
Which is good, frankly, and a bit of a relief.
And Karen says, good morning. Karen's from the Property Angels. Property Angels, that's 3 ladies that are angels. Look them up, interesting people. Anyway, guys, hands up. Give us a wave if you can hear and see us, please, this morning. Give us a hands up if you can see and hear us. Excellent, thank you. Hands going up. And Parbutha says, good morning, or GM. I guess that's good morning. Say good morning to you, sir. Guys, so yeah, we're ready to take questions this morning. We have a great guest on, don't we, Ian?
We certainly do. And actually, somebody who has worked with Richie for known Richie for quite a long time, so I'm certainly very intrigued to find out what the secret of the longevity of that relationship is. You know, whether he got a 7-year itch. I've had 1, 2, 3, and 4 now, so he'll give me the secret to his long-standing partnership with you.
Yeah, well, he's not going to dish any dirt. I can tell you that. I've had a chat with him before the show this week, and I've guaranteed that he won't say anything about when we work together. So yeah, this is a guy that I've worked with for many years. And Ashley says good morning, Richie and Ian, and Anthony and Paul have just logged on. Welcome, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so today's special guest, and guys, you know, for people that are just joining us, and you're logging in all the time here, the numbers are going up. Terrific. Guys, any guest that you want on this show, tell us what we want. This is your show. We just host it, okay? Bit of fun for us to do on a Saturday morning. So please let us know who you want as guests. A while ago, you asked us to get a structural engineer on, so we had to go and search and find one. But anyone else that you want, just let us know. Anything to do with property development, and we will bring a guest on for you. We're trying to search them out. So, you know, in the normal way, let's introduce our guest. Let's build him up. Let's say how fantastic and wonderful he is. Yeah, let's give it a go. Let's see how we get on. So Derek Mason's coming on this morning. Derek runs a company called Superstructure Associates. A lovely guy, Derek. I mean, he was free this morning, which was terrific. And so we went with the easy option. He was available this morning, so we thought, well, we get him on. I doubt he'll be able to answer any questions at all. You know, I mean, he struggles. So I'm not sure he knows much about structural engineering. I think he's Googled most of what he does know, but we'll see what he says. Let's see how he does. But Derek and I have worked together for quite a number of years. Had the great pleasure of him being very much involved in running a London office for me for a number of years before he set off and went off on his own. I obviously sold my business out, retired, and ended up running a training company for my sins. But there you go. Hey, what's not to like in this world? So shall we see if Derek's available, and let's bring him on, guys. So get ready with your questions. Anything about development, you know, what was a structural engineer do even? I mean, I'm puzzling as well, having been one myself for nearly 40 years. I'm wondering what the hell they do. So let's see if Derek's available. Derek, are you available? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Richie.
Excellent. Can you slide your camera on for us, Derek?
Excellent. There he is.
Derek, welcome to the show. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Derek.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on, Richie and Ian. I'll give you a quick intro. My name is Derek Mason. I'm the founding director of the multi-award-winning structural engineering consultancy, Superstructures Associates. We're based in Twickenham. We've been going for 9 years after I left Capita Simmons, after finishing the Olympic Stadium, which you will have seen in my book. I just described the 7 essential principles to running a successful project, which you can all learn from, and it'd be good for you to have a look at it at some point. We work with all kinds of clients, being private clients doing small residential house extensions, loft conversions, basements, rear extensions. We also work with developers of different sizes, from small ones doing sort of 4 to 6 flats, right up to ones doing over 50 flats. We, at the moment, doing 2 quite big office conversions, where we take an existing office building, convert it to flats, and put another 1 or 2 stories on top, depending on what the client's requirements are. So we've got a vast range of what we do. I've got 4 engineers that work with me, other than myself. So we've got quite a lot of capacity, and you know, we keen to share our knowledge and help you guys.
Look how efficient Derek was. I never even asked him to tell him about himself, and he was straight in there. Terrific. Guys, can you give us a wave? Put your hands up if you can hear and see Derek, please. Excellent. Good stuff. Good stuff. That's good. They can all hear and see you, so that's good. So Derek, how did you like that build-up I gave you? That was pretty complimentary, wasn't it?
It was a typical Richie introduction, so well done.
Just an aside, Ian was just asking me earlier this morning. He said, before we started the show, he said, when did you and Derek first meet? And I was trying to think back. Was it 04 when we bought Bobrovsky's, or was it before that? I'm trying to remember.
It was the end of 04, beginning 2005.
Wow, good stuff. That makes us feel old.
15 years plus.
Derek actually remembers the day that he met you. That's the worry, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, can you, Derek? Can you remember the exact day? What were we doing that day?
Well, it was at the office in London. when I came for an interview to join your company, NRM Consultants. At the Stuart advised me it would be a good place to come hang out and help you, because you needed some help desperately.
Good stuff. A good place to hang out. Well, that's great. And it's very nice, guys. This morning we have Stuart on. Stuart was my old business partner in the firm that I grew over many years. One of my very good friends in life. So Stuart, welcome to you this morning. Stuart is a fantastic structural engineer as well, one of the best engineers I've met in the world, and I rather hope he's going to come on and ask some challenging technical questions to Derek this morning. So Derek, Stuart is on, so be prepared. So Stuart, don't let me down. A quick question in. Anthony says, hi Derek, what is the name of your book? Please mention it again, Derek.
The published book is Will It Stand Up? I've had a few jibes about it because it can be taken in lots of different ways, but in essence, that was one of the fundamental questions we had to ask about the Olympic Stadium. Would it stand up? Would it fulfill its function? Because obviously you had millions of people around the world that will be watching, and the worst thing you could do is have a problem with the stadium during the opening event or something. So, that was obviously one of them, and we had a team of experts that helped me evaluate everything, and we looked at all aspects, but that was one of the fundamental questions, and that's why I've titled it Will It Stand Up?
And Derek, where can you buy this book? Is it in all good second-hand bookshops, or is it still available new?
No, it's far easier. It's just on Amazon. It became Amazon #1 bestseller in this category.
Good stuff. Good stuff. There you go. So if you want to go and grab one of Derek's books, pop onto Amazon, and I'm sure Ian and I will receive a small cut of the royalties, won't we, Ian?
Well, I only get pennies, so there's not much left for you. So.
Excellent. We've had a question in from Dan, who asks, Derek, when should I think about appointing a structural engineer on a project? What your thoughts?
It depends what your project is. If it's a conversion, a development, the sooner the better, because sometimes by having a structural engineer in at the beginning, he can advise you on what is possible and what is not possible structurally. Because sometimes the first thing developers do is they go off to an architect and they get fantastic drawings and plans done. But then when a structural engineer looks at it, sometimes you say, well, yeah, that looks great, but it's not going to work. You can't take all these columns out because all the sky hooks are gone. You kind of need to be able to support things. So sometimes just doing a site visit with the structural engineer, walking around saying what you're thinking of trying to do, he can give you advice and say, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't. I mean, I used to do quite a lot of work for developer that did hotels, and often he would call me in just to do an initial inspection and report on a project he was looking at buying. And sometimes the answer would be no, leave it alone, it's got the wrong grid, you'll spend a fortune trying to change it, it's not going to be economical. So then he walks away. So he saved himself a lot of time and effort and money just by getting expert advice in at the beginning. So I think it's the sooner the better, really.
So you really want to have a structural engineer on your team that you can really just bring in right at an early stage on a project. No, fantastic.
Good stuff. Dan, hopefully that's answered your question there. And good morning, Hannah. Good morning, Joanne. Good morning, Gudis, who's just joined us. Guys joining us as we speak. We have Derek Mason on, who is a chartered structural engineer, ready to answer your questions, anything to do with development. Okay, Adair. Good morning, Adair. Adair's put a question in, and Rajinder's just joined us. Rajinder, good morning to you. Adair says, what's the qualifications that I need to look for in an engineer, and is there an official register to check against? That's a good one.
That's a very good question. The first starting point would be look for them to be a chartered structural engineer, and here in the UK they can be registered either with the Institute of Civil Engineers, ICE, or the Institute of Structural Engineers, IStructE. And both of those you'll be able to go and get a register with them just to check the person is still registered, because what can happen is people can become chartered, and if they become naughty boys and stuff, they get struck off. So just because they were on once doesn't mean they will always be there. Hopefully, fortunately that doesn't happen very often, but it's just always worth checking the latest up-to-date list and checking that they're on. The IStructE has a thing called Find an Engineer, and if you Google that, and then it will list all the engineers that are registered with them.
So if you just Google, if anyone out there just Googles find a structural engineer, that should take them to the IStructE website, and they should better find that out. So would that then list, Derek, so if they wanted to check you out, because you could be bluffing this morning, you may have no qualifications at all. If they typed in Derek Mason, would they have to type in the name of your company as well, or just Derek Mason to find you?
Either will work, because one of the requirements of being a member of Find an Engineer is at least one member of the company has to be a registered chartered structural engineer. So, that forms the minimal level. And then the next thing, obviously, you need to look at, is experience. Have they got experience in the kind of development that you're doing? If you're converting, say, an agricultural building into residential, have they got experience with that? Because, agricultural buildings are different to normal houses or existing flats. So it's really about seeing what experience have you got. If you've got a basement in your project, have someone that's got experience with basements, because basements can be quite dangerous if they're not done properly.
Good stuff. There's a follow-up here that Stuart added in actually here, but it says, when should I think about appointing a structural engineer? Stuart's put in the chat box, RIBA stage 1 is usual. Do you want to just explain what RIBA stage 1 is to those people online, Derek?
Well, I think, it's once the architect has done some basic scheme designs and stuff, then you can start giving your input, because it's before they take it to more detailed design. Because if you're going to change something, you obviously want to do it before they've done all their designs and drawings.
Cool, good stuff. Ian, have we got another question to fire?
We've got one from Christopher. Derek, what are the biggest mistakes that you see new developers make? Great question.
Very good question. I think the first question, first thing is, not making sure they've got the right budget for the project, because if you haven't got the budget, well, you've got no project. And the second biggest one would be, I suppose, from my side, would be appointing the wrong structural engineer. When you do look for a structural engineer, you'll get several quotes, but don't always go with the cheapest quote, because the cheapest quote may not include everything. Make sure that the person that you're thinking of taking on has got all the right qualifications, the right experience, and that they've quoted to do the whole job, because you don't want to take them on a very limited fee quote, and then you find that everything will cost you much more later on, because, oh, we didn't include that, we didn't include that, we didn't include that. So all of a sudden, the final fee will be 2 or 3 times what the next best one was.
Interesting. And what are the sort of things that could come and bite you later in terms of those additional fees? What are the sort of things that some structural engineers would leave out of that initial fee?
It could be, one of the things, if you are doing quite a lot of additional work to your development, say reinforced concrete, have they included to do all the reinforced concrete detailing and bending schedules and things like that? Because a lot of them will exclude that, say it's contractor's problem, and then when you take them on, then all of a sudden there's an extra few grand just to do that. We like to include that because we like control of that, and we like to make sure that it's done properly, so that when it gets on site, your builder can just carry on with it properly, and there's no delays. Because the thing that will cost you money with development is delays. You've got a builder on site and all of a sudden the engineer's information is not available, you've got to wait 2 or 3 weeks. Well, you're paying people for 2 or 3 weeks of doing nothing. So, make sure that they will meet your program, they'll work with you, your architect, your contractor, to meet their program and timescales.
Fantastic, thank you.
Christopher, hopefully that answers your question. Adir's question that we had earlier about the official register, he says, great, Derek, thanks for that. I'm going to check you out. Hey, good stuff. Adir, go for it. Sammy's on. Sammy says, I have an engineer. Oh, this is interesting. I'm sorry, I'm reading ahead here. I should just read it out aloud. I have an engineer that said he can do some calculations for me, but I don't think he has those qualifications that Derek mentioned. Is that a problem?
It could become a very big problem, because if he hasn't got the qualifications, where did he learn his engineering? How much does he know? And what will he be giving you? I've got nothing against one-man bands, because I started in my summer house at the end of my garden when I first started. You all have to start somewhere. But if he hasn't got the qualification experience, he could give you something, and then you build it, and then when building control comes along, they condemn it. And we do, unfortunately, have to pick up quite a few projects like that, where the client will say, I had an engineer, building control says it's all wrong, can you sort it out? And then we have to go in and basically redo everything. And sometimes it means taking out what the other engineers put in, and then redoing it, which obviously means you're paying twice. So due diligence in the beginning will save you a lot of time, money, and stress.
Good stuff. And Sammy, the other thing you need to be thinking about here from a development point of view, once you go, if you're assuming you're going for funding, the funders will want to know who your team is, and they'll want to know their experience and their qualifications. And the chances are, Sammy, if you're going to go for commercial development funding and you've got a structural engineer who isn't a chartered qualified structural engineer, then you're probably not going to get them approved. So be careful. You could again be spending money which you're just going to have to redo. Excellent. Derek, thank you for that.
Sorry, Sammy. Another point on that is obviously make sure that they've got professional indemnity insurance, which is very important to check.
So that's a good question. So make sure they've got professional indemnity insurance. But Derek, can you explain for those that don't know what that is, what is professional indemnity insurance and how can you check that someone has got it?
Okay, professional indemnity insurance is insurance that we as structural engineers need to carry, because if there's a problem with a project, we all human, mistakes can happen, although, we do as much as we can to obviously avoid them. If a mistake happens, something happens on site, that there's a collapse or something like that, there's damage to your development. If they've got professional indemnity insurance, you've then got recourse to get their insurers to pay to repair the damage on your property. Without that, well, you'll end up having to do it yourself. And yes, the engineer would get struck off, or you'd end up in jail or whatever, depending, if anyone's injured or killed. It depends how serious it is. But the way of checking that they've got it is just asking for them to give you proof of their current indemnity insurance. And our insurers supply us with certificates that we can provide to potential clients, showing that we do have that insurance in place. And it's not just about having it in place when you do the design, they've got to maintain that insurance for the next 6 or 12 years to cover your liabilities of your project.
Excellent, excellent. There's a follow-up question that Hitan's put in. Hitan, good morning to you. Hitan's one of our students. He says, what limit of PI insurance, professional indemnity insurance, should we be looking for?
Well, that will depend on the value of your project. Normally, the structural value of a project is in the region of 15 to 20% of the total cost of the project. So if you've got $1 million, let's go big. Let's say you've got a £10 million project. You want their insurance to be at least 10 to 15% of that. The minimum most engineers will carry around $1 million, but bigger ones will go to 5, 10. But obviously, the higher limit, the much more the fees are incredibly high. So you don't want to go and ask for £5 million insurance, PI insurance, if you've only got a £1 million development. It's not. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent.
Ian.
Yeah, got a question in from Jin. I have been looking at a project where I want to put 2 extra floors on top of an existing building. It's got planning permission. So does that mean that it will be okay to do with the structure? It's got planning
Not
permission.
Necessarily. A lot will depend on what the existing structure, how it's constructed, what it's made of, and particularly what its foundations are. And that's where you'll need an engineer that's very experienced in this to be able to go in and assess it and find, if they can support those additional 2 levels. We've done that on various developments, but sometimes you need to actually increase the capacity of the existing foundations. And now we've got some quite clever, innovative ways that we do that. But there are ways of doing it, and sometimes there aren't. So instead of getting 2, you may get planning for 2 levels, but if you can only structurally support 1 without doing the foundations, well, then that's what you end up with, unless you're going to pay the money to enlarge the foundations. If you've got piles as foundations on the existing building, it's very difficult to actually increase the capacity, because you can't increase capacity of existing piles. You may have to put in additional piles, which does get very expensive.
And I think what's interesting, Derek, is that there's quite a lot of stuff going around at the moment, opportunities in the permitted development space, and talk about being able to put additional stories on buildings. So probably quite a good idea. Potentially, if you've got a structural engineer that's got some good tricks that they can leverage to be able to make that happen, that's great. But also, I guess, a great way of making sure that you don't disappear down a rabbit hole by thinking you've got a great scheme on your hands when actually it will fall at the first hurdle because structurally you can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the trick for the additional 2 levels is to try and do them as lightweight as possible, you know, because the less weight you're putting on the existing structure, the less of a problem it will be. You know, and if you can design it and the architect can help, you know, with lightweight materials, lightweight cladding, that kind of thing, then you've got much more of a chance. You know, often if the existing building, if you can sort of overstress it by about 5 to 10%, that's normally okay. You can justify that. But once it gets to sort of 20, 25% additional load, it just doesn't work without strengthening. And strengthening can, you know, increase your cost quite substantially.
Brilliant. No, thank you.
Okay, so whose question? That was Jim, wasn't it? Asked that, Jim.
Jim,
Hopefully
yeah.
that's answered that question there. Hitan said, thanks. That was a question about PI. No problem at all, Hitan. Pleasure. A little bit of 2 for the price of 1 today. So Stuart, another structural engineer, has put a comment in the box. Problems with developers, he's titled this, Derek. That's problems with a lot of us guys, a lot of our family as CEOs. So this is an engineer having a little pop at us here. He says, problem with developers. Developers tend to be in too much of a hurry. Most disputes occur because developers have started work on site before having addressed all of the issues, particularly highways and drainage. There we go. We're in too much of a hurry, guys. So that's another little bit of feedback there of where we make mistakes. And I don't think I could disagree with that. Thank you, Stuart. Okay, Trish says, Derek, what geographical area do you work in?
Generally, we do London, and we do right down, you know, down the south coast. We do Southampton. We do, you know, Winchester. We'll, you know, anything within an hour and a half, 2 hours drive from Twickenham, we'll do. You know, we've even done stuff up in the Midlands. You know, so it's I enjoy going for country drives. So yeah, you know, if it's a nice drive, we'll consider it.
So Trish, it's got to be a nice drive. If it's not a nice drive, and what do you want? A coffee and a bit of cake at the end of the drive, Derek?
Definitely a coffee.
Definitely a coffee. I'd have a coffee and a piece of cake, to be honest, and possibly a little biscuit for the journey home. Yeah, Trish, he needs a coffee. Tempt him to a coffee. Tell him how wonderful the area is, and he might be interested. Trish, hope that's answered that. Helen's just quick follow up. She says, will you come to Northampton? It's quite nice.
Yes, I will. We've done some project. I did one with Richie in Northampton. So yeah, you know, it's you know, I do get around, you know, quite a lot, you know, even up to Birmingham and Warwick, those areas as well. So, you know, as long as it's an interesting, challenging project, we're really interested. Those are the ones that we like doing because we can bring real value to the developers. You know, we can help. You know, our fees aren't the cheapest. We're not the cheapest engineer, but we never intended to be. We like bringing value to the clients. We will help you save money overall on your project. One of the contractors we work with, he said, Derek, I like working with you because you always save me more than your fees cost me. So proof is in the pudding.
No, that's good. I think there's a good point there. I think it's like anything in life. If you know, and particularly with professionals, we always say this to all of our students, you know, I mean, it's you know, you don't have to go for the most expensive, but don't necessarily go for the cheapest, and really think about what you're getting. That is massively important. Trish has put a follow up. Trish was the one that said, geographically, where are you based? She says, thank you. That is great. We'll be speaking to you in the future. I will make sure it's a nice drive and have lots of coffee and cake. And Trish is one of our students as well, Derek. So expect a call from Trish.
Look forward to it.
Fantastic. Got one in here from Will. What's the difference between a structural and a civil engineer? Will has a friend who's a civil engineer. Could he do his developments?
Okay. In broad terms, a civil engineer does civil engineering, which is often large infrastructure projects like roads and dams and things like that, whereas a structural engineer is predominantly buildings and bridges.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. There we go. Who was that? Will. There you go. Will, that was a quick, simple answer for you. Bang, that's told you. So do you think Will could use his friend?
Well, there are some civil engineers that do structures. You know, it's because I say, you know, depends on the experience and exposure of what they've done. The qualifications will enable them to do it because it's, you know, it's the same engineering, but you know, analyzing things and that as well. obviously buildings, there are certain specific things you need to look for and deal with. You know, if it's a lightweight building, vibrations are an important thing to take into account, which in civil structures isn't really an issue because they're normally very big and lumpy and heavy. But you know, it's, you know, obviously it's horses for courses. The easiest thing is talk to him and work out that he's got the right experience. You know, if you've done that kind of thing plenty of times before, there's no reason in doing it just because he calls himself a civil engineer. You know, it's all about confidence that he can do the job.
I think an interesting point, Derek's mentioned it a couple of times, guys, is about checking out your structural engineer, and indeed any professional, is have they done this sort of thing before, and can they show you evidence of similar things? Not just, yes, show me some evidence of it. Okay, Vijay's got a question in. Vijay, good morning, Vijay. He says, hi, just quite polite, isn't it? I always like it when someone says hello. When looking to convert an industrial unit into residential, would a structural engineer's input be required for prior approval? So that's about the prior approval for planning. I can answer that one because this is more a planning question than the structural question, but I'm going to ask Derek just to make a comment on it as well. So Vijay, in terms of putting in your prior approval, putting in your prior notification, as it's called, your permitted development application, you don't need a structural engineer's report to do that, okay? That is a layout, and quite often a very schematic layout at that, to get your prior notification. But, and I'm going to ask Derek to comment on this bit, if you're going to consider converting an industrial building, and you know we're going to convert that into residential, we're going to be chopping off like a tin shed, taking off bits of the roof, cutting and carving it. It might be worth having an engineer look around. Would you say so, engineer? Derek, getting an engineer in early to just have a look and make any comments on your proposed scheme?
I would suggest do it right at the beginning before you even make an offer, because by looking at the structure, the engineer might be able to work out that it's actually not viable what you want to do, because industrial buildings are often designed very, very close to the limits because they procured by commercial enterprises and they don't want to pay for something that they don't need. So it's designed very, very close to the wire, so to speak. You know, they're all safe for the industrial use, but if you're going to put, you know, additional floors in and things like that, cutting and carving, it may turn out that actually it's not viable, or that you have to do so much strengthening, you might as well knock the whole thing down and start again. So, you know, it's worth just having come do a feasibility study for you and report in the beginning, saying, you know, so you at least have some comfort that yes, it will be viable. You don't need to know all the details, but at least you know you've got a project that has legs, so to speak.
Brilliant, brilliant. Just a quick comment in here, Ranjit from Property Investor News. By the way, Derek, he likes us to mention Property Investor News magazine at least 7 times every show. It's not a contract we have, it's just a little bit of a gentleman's agreement and a bit of fun. But anyway, Property Investor News, Ranjit says he's just ordered, will it stand up? By Derek Allen Mason, yep. £16.73 on Amazon, and he got a discount. He got a 2% discount and saved 26p. Wow. Please let Derek know it's still standing up, the stadium that is. I went past it a few days ago.
Good, yeah.
Excellent.
BJ says, cool, thanks for the information, Derek. Right, Ian, we've got another question.
We've got a few that are quite similar. I'm going to read out Raj's, which is, good morning, A-team and Derek. When going to do a viewing on an existing building for development, what are the first 3 things to look for in terms of structure that we could assess before engaging an engineer? And is there a tool that you could use, like a stress meter, etc.? So I guess basically developers don't want to be taking a structural engineer around every time they do a viewing or consider a project. What are the things that we could do in terms of homework to before we have a conversation with the engineer?
Well, I'd say even before you go and do the site visit, are there any existing records of the building that you can get? You know, what are particularly the structural drawings? You can get hold of those. Those are gold. So try and get hold of those. It'll show you what the structure's made of and that. And your structural engineer will want those anyway. You know, and that can save you literally thousands, tens of thousands of pounds if you can get hold of those. You know, you may not be able to get them before you buy because sometimes there's legal issues and things that client won't release them. But the best tool to use when you go there is your eyes and your gut feel. You know, have a look. Has the building got any signs of distress? Now, by that I mean, is there any signs that there's problems with the building? Is there lots of cracking? Because obviously, if there's cracking, that could mean that you've got settlement or issues like that. The building's been overstressed in some way. You know, what is the general feel? Has the building been well maintained? That kind of thing. You know, if there's leaking, you know, leakage marks all over the ceilings and things like that, the plumbing's been leaking and stuff like that, because obviously you've got a steel structure, that could mean there's areas that are corroded and things like that. It's just really what is the general feel for it. And then obviously when you walk around, try and envisage what you want to do in there. You know, would it be possible, you know, are you going to be taking lots of columns and beams and things out? If so, well, then you've got to budget for that, because you'll have to strengthen other areas. You know, so it's all about, at the end of the day, you want a good return on your investment, but you don't want to spend a fortune redoing the whole building and then you don't have much profit at the end. So it's just really looking and getting a feel, and then, you know, if you think it's got potential, well, then get an engineer in. You know, a lot of them you can just go in on a day rate for a couple of hours, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, but at least you can get some professional advice on whether it's feasible or not.
Fantastic. Raj, hope that answered your question. Thank you, Derek.
Good stuff, good stuff. Anthony says very quickly, hi Derek, do you cover Lewisham, South East London?
Yes, we do.
There you go. Yes, he does. Anthony, there you are. Barry, good morning to you. Barry says, can you explain what a framed building is? I saw it in some agents' details and they said the building was flexible for future use. A framed building, Derek. Can you explain what that
so
is?
Is it a framed building?
But Barry, you could always put a bit of qualification. He says, but the question is, can you explain what a framed building is? I saw it in some agents' details, and they said the building was for flexible use.
Okay, so if a building is a framed building, it means that it's constructed from a frame, and that frame could be a concrete frame, could be a steel frame, which is the main load-bearing elements. In other words, you don't have walls that are load-bearing elements. And the advantage of a framed building is, it means that generally most of the walls inside that are non-load bearing, which means you can take them out without affecting the strength of the building. The only sort of limit on that is that you need some form of walls or some way of making sure the building is structurally stable. And often that will be with the stair cord or the lift cord. So obviously those walls you don't take out, but you wouldn't anyway unless you're relocating them. But then you'd have to replace them if you relocate them. But generally, often we go to flats, and if it's a framed building in a flat, it means they can take out a lot of the internal walls and reconfigure it without affecting the actual structure. It means, their development is obviously a lot more feasible then.
Excellent, good stuff, good stuff. Another one, this sounds a bit technical as well. This is from Colin, fairly long. I'm going to read this out though. I have a scheme that I'm looking at, and I want to extend up into a roof space to create an extra room. It's a small office block, but has timbers in the way in the roof. I think the architect said they are called trusses, and said I would need to get a structural engineer to say whether they could be altered. Is this a difficult and expensive thing to do? There is lots of timber. Colin.
No, it's not as bad as it sounds. Trusses are the cheapest way to form a support structure for a roof. But obviously, if he wants to go into that to make a room, the trusses need to come out. But the structural engineer, you can just design a pitched steel frame in there, and then it'll open it all up, and then and you can take the trusses out. So it's not a difficult one.
There you go, Colin. Look, you thought that was complicated. It's not. So you can take all that timber out and you can use that in your wood burner at home as well. So there's a double benefit there. Can't be bad. Ian, can we squeeze one more question in if we can for Derek, because we're running close to time. Have you got one?
Crystal ball time, I think, Derek. So this one's from Jonathan. Question for Derek. We have been going through some difficult times recently. What's your opinion on where values are going to go over the next 12 to 24 months?
Interesting one. I mean, from my perspective from a structural engineering point of view, I see, residential buildings and that still continuing, and particularly from office blocks, because I think a lot of companies are going to be reducing their office requirements, whether it's in London or wherever. They will downsize the offices because a lot more people will continue working remotely, on a phased basis even. And I think a lot more office blocks will become available for development. And I think that will be quite a niche area of looking into for developments. And a lot of office blocks are quite robust, so you could probably extend 1 or 2 levels above as well to, improve your investment in that. So I think that's definitely one area that will be, increasing in that. And we're already getting inquiries now for things like that. We worked right through lockdown, so we were quite fortunate. And now from July, August, things are starting to pick up because 2 of our bigger projects that were on hold during lockdown have now come off. They're back on stream now, and it's just go, go, go.
Derek, what do you think? So, Jonathan, hopefully that's answered your question. Derek, what do you think in terms of recovery? We're obviously going to be heading into a fairly deep recession. A lot of people are going to be made redundant. What do you think in terms of recovery back to today's level? Do you think we're a year, 2 years? What's your thought?
I'd say probably 12 to 18 months at least. Again, it depends on the sector. I think the private residential sector, I think, will still continue, because I think what lockdown made everyone aware of, they lack space at home. A lot of people can't afford to move and that, so they will just extend, whether that's rear extensions, side extensions, lofts, or if they really got desperate and they got money, they'll go into basements, because obviously basements cost about twice the cost of building above ground.
Yeah, great stuff. Excellent. Look, guys, I know there's some other questions in. Difficult to get through them all again, so apologies. Derek, will you come back again for another time?
Yeah, definitely. No, I think it's good, and we want to spread the knowledge and help people, and that's part of what we do. We educate people and help them make the right decisions for their developments.
Interesting. Couple of comments in. Raj just put, thank you, Derek. Biggest take amongst others was knowing you are able to engage an engineer on an hourly basis. Brilliant, he says. And Stuart, our old sparring partner, says, good effort, Derek. So you got a thumbs up from Stuart as well. So that can't be bad. In my opinion, one of the most respected structural engineers in the industry. So Stuart says, good effort, Derek. Then Derek is a guy I'd say you want to think about engaging.
Richard, one thing I think people need to consider when they're looking at who they're going to work for, talk to the engineer, meet him if possible, and just see if you can get on, because it needs to be fun to work with. They need to be fun to work with, and that they will work with you and not against you. It's a relationship you're developing, a professional relationship. So you need to be able to get on with a person, obviously trust them, trust what they say, but know that they will be looking after you and watching your back, because you need to get on with them, because it's got to be, it's hard work, but it's got to be fun as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very well.
Derek, what I was going to say, Derek, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of them doing that?
They can obviously go to the website. We just refreshed our website on Wednesday this week, so it's got the new look. So go to the website, which is Superstructures Associates. You can find it on Google. Our office phone number is 0208 102 7974. And otherwise, you can just email me direct if you want to, and that is derek.mason, which is derek.mason at ssaceltd.co.uk.
Just give your website out and your phone number one more time, please, Derek.
Okay, so the website, just Google Superstructures Associates, and the office phone number is 0208 102 7974. And do you want the email again?
No, don't do the email. That's too complicated, and we're going to run out of time. But I will say, and we very rarely ever say this, always make your own mind up who you're going to work with. Having actually employed Derek in the past, I know that Derek does go the extra mile, and I think that's massively important. An engineer, a consultant that will look after you. So, yeah, I'd highly suggest put Derek on your list of engineers to consider. Derek, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your time. Go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday with the family, and hopefully we'll see you again. Derek, thank you very much.
Right. Thanks very much. Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Wow.
That was good, wasn't it, eh?
Yeah, very good.
And we had 2 for the price of 1. We had another engineer tripping in as well today, which was brilliant. So, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that. Yes, I mean, looks like a few people put some great answers in there. She said, Trish says, that was very interesting and informative. Thank you. Anthony says, thanks, Derek. I will contact you for a feasibility study of my shop I plan to develop. I'll let Derek know that. Brilliant. Good stuff. Thanks, Derek and team. Oh, good, fun stuff. Guys, hopefully you've enjoyed that today. We've enjoyed it. It's always good to get your questions in. Now, as always, just a few little announcements, please. If you've got anyone else out there that you think would benefit from this community, from this this family of CEOs, which you all are, you're all part of our family here, and I know a lot of people are regulars and come back time again. Some of you are new, so please invite people along to the show. It's absolutely free, and we just like to give out. And of course, please share on your social media channels. And if anyone would like to come into our closed Facebook group, Business Owners Creating Wealth Through Property Development, then you are more than welcome. Just contact us. Tuesday's show, we have an architect on. We have an architect coming on, a chap called Mike Sandu, who runs an architectural practice, and he will be on to answer any questions to do with architecture. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Put it in the chat box if you have, and you know, that's always nice to hear as we've just finished off. So, you know, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday morning. Any final comment to make here before we sign off?
Only to say, well, thanks for joining, but also if you, if there's any guests that you'd like us to get on in terms of particular professions or whatever, or even individuals, then do give us a shout, and we will do our very best to try and hunt them down, and I'll try and persuade Richie not to insult them immediately before they come on it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Anyway, guys, that's it. Thank you very much. Debson Richard says, wow, thanks, Derek. Some great advice and info. Anthony says, thank you very much. Ranjit says, stay safe. Take extra care until next time. Ranjit saying from Property Investor News. One more time. There you go, Ranjit. Can't be bad. Great show, gentlemen. You keep raising the bar. Enjoy the weekend. Raj, thank you for your lovely comments. Evelyn says, thanks, Derek and team. Good stuff. Karen says, thanks. Fantastic show. Massive thank you, says Anthony. And Ranjit, please. I'm not sure what that says. So that's the final comment there. That's a bit off. But Gavin says, thanks, chaps. Informative as ever. Thank you. See you Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye for now.